Hello, seventh graders. I hope that you guys are having a beautiful week. I hope you enjoyed your 4-day weekend. I certainly enjoyed mine. Last week, we left on a little bit of a cliffhanger. Not much of a cliffhanger, I admit, but nonetheless, we were talking about how um, Abraham wanted his son to have a wife, right? And that he was looking for something specific. He didn't want her to just marry anybody, but wanted her to marry someone from his hometown, right? But preferably someone from his family. Families were very big back then. We're not talking about a brother or sister or anything. But he wanted to marry someone from his family, not some strange person that he wouldn't know. And so he sent his servant to go back to his hometown of Ur, and there to find a wife for his son Isaac. And you might remember that I told you about how where you go to meet girls in ancient times, that you would go to the well, because that's where the girls would all come to do their chores, to come get water for the family. They didn't have plumbing back then. They couldn't just turn on the tap. They had to go get water. And who would go get in the water? Well, not mom and dad. They were busy. They'd leave that to the kids. Usually the young boys were out working, digging ditches or tending sheep or whatever dad told them to do. And so the girls who would help with the household chores, which there were a lot of, one of those chores was to go get water. So you'd go and sit by the well and wait, and sure enough, the ladies would all come out of the town and you'd get to meet them all. So I want to share with you just a little bit of the story of what happened here when Abraham's servant went to the well. You see, he went there and he didn't know what to do. I mean, it's not like he's looking for a wife for himself. He's looking for the wife for his master's son. Somebody it's this is kind of weird situation, right? So he gets there and he's like, all right, I know where to go. I go to the well. But what do I do when I get there? I mean, how do I know who's going to be the right person for Isaac? I mean, and even if I do, how do I let them know about Isaac and Abraham, and how do I do this? I don't even know what to do. Um, this has got to be the hardest job anybody's ever been given. Go and find the right person to spend for my son to spend the rest of their life with. Okay, I'll go do that. So here's what he did. He went. He took 10 of his master's camels, bearing all kinds of gifts, and he made his way to the city of Nahor, which is near, and rode close to the town where he grew up, where Abraham grew up. And near evening, at the time when women go out to draw water, he made the camels kneel by a well outside the city. Then he said, Lord God of my master Abraham, let it turn out favorably for me, and thus deal generously with my master Abraham. While I stand here at the spring, and the daughters of the townspeople are coming out to draw water, if I say to a young woman, please lower your jug that I may drink, and she answers, drink, and I will water your camels too, then she would be the one you've decided upon for your servant Isaac. In this way, I'll know that you've dealt graciously with my master. So he doesn't know what to do, but he knows Abraham trusts God. And so he says a prayer to God. He says, God, all these girls are about to come out here to come get water, and I don't know who you want for Isaac. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set up the impossible test. I'm going to ask them as they come out, would you lower your jug so that I may take a drink? In other words, would you give me, a stranger, a drink of water because I don't have a jug? And here's the well is like deep. You got to lower your jug down to the well and pull it back up, right? So whoever is going to be that nice, that's step one. But I want somebody who's even more generous than that. Someone who will water my camels. I don't know if you know this, but camels need a lot of water. Not just a little. Like watering the camels would be a big job. They would need a ton of water. This is not like giving all the camels a drink. They've been traveling across the desert. This would be like gallons and gallons and gallons and gallons of water. So not only is this girl supposed to be generous enough to, oh sure, I guess I'll give this stranger a drink. I'll be nice. This girl's got to be generous enough to be willing to suddenly do tons of work for me for no reason. A stranger. He had scarcely finished speaking when Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor, in other words, a member of the family, came out with a jug on her shoulder. The young woman was very beautiful, a virgin untouched by man. She went down to the spring and filled her jug. As she came up, the servant ran toward her and said, "Please, give me a sip of water from your jug." "Drink, sir," she said, and quickly, lowering the jug onto her hand, she gave him a drink. When she had finished giving him a drink, she said, "I will draw water for your camels too, until they have finished drinking." And with that, she quickly emptied her jug into the drinking trough and ran back to the well to draw more water until she had drawn enough for all the camels. The man watched her the whole time, silently waiting to learn whether or not the Lord had made his journey successful. And when the camels had finished drinking, the man took out a gold nose ring weighing half a shekel and 2 gold bracelets weighing 10 shekels for her wrists. Then he asked her, "Whose daughter are you? Tell me, please, and is there a place in your father's house for us to spend the night?" She said, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor. And we have plenty of straw and fodder and a place to spend the night." So here's what happens. He goes. The very first girl that comes out, indeed, is this girl Rebekah, and she's beautiful. And she gives him a drink, and he doesn't say a word. And she says, "You know what? I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to water your camels too." And she waters the camels till they're done drinking. And his immediate response is to give her a gift. She's just done a bunch of work, right? So it only makes sense. It's only the fair thing to give her a gift. So he does. He gives her a very nice gift, like a very expensive gift, like shocking gift, and says, "Do you have room at your house for me to stay the night?" And she says, "I do." And I'm not going to read it. I'll just tell you the rest of the story. He goes to the house, right? And there at the house, he enters the house and he meets the father of the house. And he says who he is. And the father of the house says, "No way. Abraham's still alive? He's out there? He's successful? He's doing well?" And the servant's like, "Oh, yeah, very, very well. He's following God's rule, God's will, and it's doing very well for him. And he has a son whose name is Isaac. And I think Abraham's God sent me here because Isaac is to marry Rebekah." And the dad says, "Hmm, hmm." Mm-mm. Where is it? Where is it? Right here. Okay, it's right here. Nope, 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 nope. Sorry, I had meant to have this ready. Okay. This Laban, this is the man who's the dad, says, "This thing comes from the Lord. We can say nothing against you, either for or against it." In other words, I'm not making this decision. This is something more. Here's Rebekah, right in front of you. Take her and go, that she may become the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has said. When Abraham's servant heard that, he bowed before the Lord. He brought out stuff and presented them to Rebekah and gave her costly presents. And then he asked her if she would come. And she said yes. She must be crazy. She must be one of those adventurous people who's willing to just wildly walk off into the world, right? Um, says, "Will you go with this man?" She answered, "I will." And after this, they sent off their sister Rebekah, and they blessed her and said, "Sister, may you grow into thousands of myriads, and may your descendants gain possession of the gates of their enemies." And out they went. And they left. So now Abraham's servant has traveled all this way, and now they've got to travel all the way back with all these camels. And he left a bunch of gifts with Rebekah's father and their family, and off they go. And as they come, they're riding through the desert for weeks. They finally get to where Abraham is, and there Abraham is with Isaac, and Rebekah is sitting there, and she's riding the camel and coming along with them, and she sees them in the distance. Now, they've been traveling a long time. They've seen lots of people, right? But Rebekah, the second she sees Isaac, she asks the servant, "Do you know who that is?" And he says, "Yes, that's Abraham and my master's son, Isaac." And she immediately got off the camel and started making herself look beautiful because she could tell it was him from miles away. And the very first moment they met, from that point forward, it was one of the most beautiful romances in all of the Old Testament. Most of the time, you look at as you're reading scripture, you find about all the problems, all the things bad that happened, but not between Isaac and Rebekah. Not between Isaac and Rebekah. They love one another with just a deep and profound love. It's very beautiful to see. And eventually, Rebekah bears Isaac's son. She gets pregnant. But instead of it just being a son, it ends up being twins. So Isaac is going to have two sons. Now, these two sons, I want to point something out. You might remember a long time ago when we were talking about what it meant to be, what it was like for Abraham to be wandering out in the desert. We were talking about how families would live together, right? Whole families for safety, that they would stay out and they would remove with all of their sheep and all of the things that they needed, and that the whole family would stay together to protect them from robbers and thieves and that kind of thing, right? So one of the things you want to make sure is that all of your stuff stays together. So when you give your inheritance, when you die, and you give everything you have to your children, you give them all only to one child, your firstborn son. And there's very good reasons for this. One, the reason it was a man is because men were generally stronger and were warriors and could do more protecting of everybody, right? Not saying that girls aren't strong or anything like that, but in ancient times, that's how it was done. And so it had to be the firstborn son. And the second-born son didn't get anything. And the daughters didn't get anything. It was the firstborn son's job to take care of them for the rest of their lives, right? So it was the job of the firstborn son to take care of the whole family. And that meant his brothers and sisters too. But there's a problem here with Isaac and Rebekah. Because Isaac is about to have twins. Well, how do you decide when they're twins who's going to get the inheritance? How do you decide which one of the sons is going to be the one to get everything? Well, the same rule still applies. You see, both sons aren't going to be born at once. Whichever son is born first, even though it only be a few seconds or a minute beforehand, whichever son is born first, that's the firstborn son. And that's the one who gets everything. And so when Rebekah has these twins, their names are Esau and Jacob. Now, Esau is the one born first. But Jacob, when he's born, is born with his hand wrapped around Esau's heel, like he's born grabbing onto Esau. Now, I want to let you know right off the bat, this is an idiom. You might not know what an idiom is. An idiom is a phrase that's used in a language that means something more than just what the words mean, right? For example, I might say, it's raining cats and dogs. I don't mean it's actually raining cats and dogs. I don't mean cats and dogs are falling out of the sky. That would be a silly thing. What I mean is it's raining really, really hard, like really, really hard. That's an idiom. Well, grabbing the heel is an idiom in ancient Hebrew that means a trickster, a sneaky one, right? Somebody who grabs at someone's heel is someone who's trying to trick them. It's kind of like saying, he's got something sneaky going on, right? And yet Jacob is born literally grabbing the heel of Esau. So we learn two things really fast. We learn that there's going to be a conflict here between Esau and Jacob, and that Jacob is going to be a sneaky, crafty one. And you know what? He is going to be a sneaky, crafty one. But Esau is the older son. So while Isaac and Rebekah have had this beautiful, wonderful marriage, and they do for the rest of their life, there's going to be a conflict in their children, in these two sons. But we're going to learn about that conflict next week. Here's what I want to make sure you understand. When we're looking at these family relationships of the Old Testament, you're going to find over and over again that what they do and how they go about finding wives and about how they intermarry is going to be very, very different from the way we do things now. For example, today we were talking a little bit about how Abraham wanted Isaac to find a wife that was from his own family. Now, in our time and in our place and in our culture, we would never do that. That's something that we would consider to be very inappropriate. We would want someone who's not in our family to be our spouse. I want you to understand that that was something different back then, that was something that was more acceptable, that it wasn't that Abraham was trying to do something wrong. He really wasn't. He was trying to do the right thing, and they weren't really closely related. But that the idea of marrying someone that you're related to was considered good back then. As odd as that may sound, that was normal. So I do want to just kind of say that that's not something we would do now, for very, very good reasons. But they didn't know those reasons back then. So, we've got to cut them some historical slack. But regardless, I've always just loved the marriage between Isaac and Rebekah because of that deep sense of closeness and love that they shared. That right from the moment they saw each other, they knew that it was love at first sight, and they lived a very, very close and happy life. It's a very beautiful thing. So we're going to find out more about Jacob and Esau next week. I can't wait to share that story with you. It's a crazy, wild one. So it's going to be a lot of fun. God bless you. I hope you have a beautiful week, and I look forward to seeing you next time around.